We'll begin, and we will begin. This will be a fascinating, stimulating show. Be assured, be assured. So let's get the show on the road. There we go. I can put that on silence. There we go. So people, welcome. This is the Motivator Show, usually alongside Lady Chelsea, but she's taken her PhD. Unable to be here with us this morning. We wish her well. We wish her well. So this is the Motivator Show, where we translate our words into action. I want to give praise and respect and recognition to Ian King, who's taken us from night to day. Ian King, enough respect. Stay strong, my brother. Stay strong. Of course, it's important always to recognize and give respect to the Galaxy management, those visionary leaders in the community who wanted to ensure that the next generation has a media platform already owned and controlled and financed by our community, Galaxy, Afiwi.net. I'll give praise and enough respect and recognition to Chief Makombabai, the visionary leader and founder of Galaxy Radio, Afiwi.net. I want to recognize someone I have not seen for a while. Is, of course, Elder Erikute. My elder, I hope you're well. I hope you're listening. I hope you're strong. Praise be. I want to recognize, of course, Abu Ratata and his wonderful wife, that dedicated husband, that dedicated man. I respect you and honor, respect you. And of course, never forgetting the longest serving pilot on this radio station, or indeed this multi-platform radio station, Nickel, the most royal. Praise be to you, my brethren, praise be. But I want to give a special shout out and recognition to the solution finder, that woman of self-strength and intelligence. I've got to admire her. I want to give praise and respect to Empress Shanice. She doesn't moan. She doesn't argue. She doesn't go along with all this nonsense that's around the community. She focuses, she finds solutions and pursues those solutions. Someone like that, you have to admire. Praise be, my Empress, praise be. Long may you remain healthy and live long and prosper. Continue your wondrous works. Praise be. Oh yeah. And being amongst such people, I am proud to be a pilot here on Galaxy Afiwi.net. But this program, as well as being transmitted via internet radio, Galaxy Afiwi.net, is also being transmitted via YouTube under the Motivator Show, DE, the Motivator Show. You can both see and hear my voice, if you so wish. Similarly, under the Motivator Show on Facebook, you can find us there, as well as under Mixcloud as well. So each of those platforms are currently transmitting this program live around the world. I look forward to your listening ear later on, because today's program will be a truly stimulating experience. So I want to go forward and first of all recognize our contributor to our show last week, the most impressive Marlene Ellis. I want to recognize her and her outstanding works in the community in relation to breast cancer. Breast cancer is the female equivalent in many ways to prostate cancer in men. So breast cancer in women runs at rates above the national average. And I wish to encourage women and girls to think about breast cancer and how we can prevent it from becoming a death toll. There are clear lessons that we all learned last week. Lessons what women and girls should do if you are to prevent breast cancer becoming a death cancer. Okay. And I really wish to encourage you all to take note of what was said last week. I remember the website. Yeah, I remember the website, blackwomenbreastcancer.org.net. Okay. And those of you who are in receipt of my usual media, I wish to encourage you to review that media and go to Marlene Ellis under breast cancer. Just use the Google search and it would appear. I wish to positively encourage you to pursue this. She was the most impressive contributor to our show last week. Okay, Marlene Ellis of the Breast Cancer Network. If you've got questions, please direct your questions to her. And if you are unsure about what you should do in these circumstances, I always recommend, of course, go to your GP or go to the Motivator Show on YouTube. You can see last week's show. And it was an information-rich show. So information-rich, I actually forgot to open the phone lines. It was so information-rich. Well done, Marlene. Well done. And I want to make sure that people like that are never forgotten. Yeah, well done. We need to get her back in to discuss other matters, but most certainly she was the most impressive contributor to our show. Okay. Now, I want to now go on to the other topic, which really is important to us, and that's health. Okay. Every so often, I'm challenged by men and women out there in the community who ask the question, why do I spend 10, 15 minutes discussing health points in my show? I do this because we don't talk about our health enough. Why should we have above average levels, almost epidemic levels of diabetes in our community? Why is it that every Black family, African family in this country will have someone in the family, immediate family, with diabetes, or know someone with their immediate networks? Doesn't it suggest that this is an issue of concern? So I say to you all, consider the amount of sugar you're ingesting into your bodies. Do you need to add those spoons of sugar to your teas and coffees? Think about the number of those so-called soft drinks, fizzy drinks. Think about the amount of cakes you're ingesting. And remember, the sugar doesn't affect you immediately, doesn't affect you tomorrow or next week, or next month, or next year, or indeed next decade. It has a cumulative impact, reducing your ability of your body to process these many ways, I was about to use the word, yes, I will use the word processed sugars, these white sugars that we buy in the grocers. But the negative impact on our community is clear and obvious. It is a clear and present danger to us. I want to urge you to think about the amount of sugar that you're ingesting, because the damage is taken on our community is significant. And of course, I'll remind you again of the speech given by the Vice Chancellor of the University of the West Indies, Professor Hilary Beckhorst, when he noted the epidemic levels of diabetes in the Caribbean and the Americas. But the figures are not far off here in Britain and Europe. I urge you to think about the amount of sugar that you're ingesting into your bodies. Just think about it. And if you're unsure, reasoned doubt, please see an appropriately qualified health practitioner, doctor, GP, specialist pharmacist, and so on. I also ask you to consider the amount of salt that you're ingesting into your bodies. And again, salt is both hidden and obvious. You know, often many of these ingredients tell you to add salt to those ingredients. And the only reason for adding salt, supposedly, is not for health reasons, it's for flavoring reasons. But honestly, the human body doesn't need the quantum of salt that we are regularly ingesting. We do not need it. It's not appropriate for our bodies. Consider the numbers of people you know who have hypertension or high blood pressure, often as a direct result of excessive salt content in our bodies. Again, most of us are aware of someone both in our immediate families or immediate family networks with hypertension. And that should tell you that this is a clear and present danger. I also ask you, please, also to consider the amount of fat and carbohydrates you're ingesting. Fat often is in meat. You know, I'll give you the story of going to the butcher's, buying beef and noting these white streaks in the beef and ask the question, is that fat? And the butcher's saying to me, oh, well, it's there for flavoring, you know, make the beef moist. Complete nonsense, of course. Could you pay the same price for the prime beef as you would, of course, for the fat in lamb and other meats? You know? Did you know that dairy products are essentially cow's fat? Yep, hardened lactose. Did you know that? Cheese is just fat. Butter is just fat. Just another form of fat. We consume far too much of this. Far too much. With the consequence, our arteries are being clogged up with this. Okay. And the physiological or the impact on our bodies are profound. You know, blowing up our bodies so we look, you know, really heavy, you know. Big thighs, you know, big waist, big chest, yeah, in both males and women. You know? But the cumulative impact over time is to put undue weight on our hearts. And the effect of that, of course, is to shorten our lives. And we're doing it to ourselves. We are doing it to ourselves. So I ask you to consider the amount of fat and carbohydrates in those flour products, you know? That's what it is. Flour, carbohydrates in our bodies, we convert it to sugars, yep, and fat, which is accumulated around our organs. Yeah. So it doesn't affect you immediately, but as you get into middle and older age, it has a cumulative impact. I ask you to consider, please. I'm not telling you, you know, I know there's many of you who are very stubborn and are not going to change your habit. No, they're not going to change your habits. Not until you come down with an illness and you have no choice. But I only ask you, I gain no personal financial gain. I don't excel in my political career. Yeah. Those who love me will not love me even more. Well, I don't know. We never know. Huh? By giving these messages to you. I give these messages to you because it's the right thing to do. I give these messages to you because it's the right thing to do. He said, we'll have the nutritionist in a few weeks' time. Okay. But most certainly, it's crucial that we increase the amount of fruits and vegetables in our diets. Yeah? Fruits and vegetables, untainted fruits and vegetables wherever possible. Yeah? It is mission critical to our general health and well-being. that we increase the amount of fruits and vegetables in our diets, okay? And reduce the amount of meat we're intaking, no more than 5 to 10% of the total diet, if that. It is essential for our general health and well-being. Appropriate amount of water, ideally 2 to 3 liters, but speak to your GP, speak to your nutritionist, find out what is the appropriate amount of water for you. I'll have a sip now, huh? In my case, I like to warm the water. I prefer warm water. Yeah. But it's essential, though, that you think about your health. If you can't take care of your own health, how can you take care of other people's well-being? I want you to consider that. Yeah. I also want to encourage you all to exercise. It is critical if you are increasing the amount of fruits and vegetables in your diet, moderating the amount of salt and sugars and fats and carbohydrates that we're ingesting, that you exercise. Through exercise, you exercise, and your body, therefore, is able to take care of itself. Heighten your immune response when the maladies affect us, Strengthen your resistance to all those other illnesses that are out there within the community. Lengthen your life without the need to have to resort to drugs in order to moderate the effects of older age. That's the benefit of taking care of yourself. Exercise is critical. I have my weights here. Yes, I've got them here. I love my weights, yeah. And I spend, 30 minutes just doing my weights on both arms. I do a little running, okay? But I use my weight for the top half of my body. Do it deliberately, because it means it increases my mental robustness, yeah? As previous callers would have told you, it's so important, as well as taking care of your physical needs, it's essential that we take care of our psychological, mental needs. And if in doubt, please seek professional advice. Please seek professional advice. Please seek professional advice. As Marlene Ellis would have reminded us last week, women, you've got to feel your breast for potential lumps. Okay? And if you're unsure, go to the doctor. Yeah? The doctor is not going to laugh at you for being concerned that there may be a lump in your breast. Yeah? They will not laugh. They will consider you a responsible person. Very important message to communicate to you. Yeah, very important message to communicate with you. But equally, of course, we must take care of our spiritual centeredness. Give yourself time to wash away all the problems in the world and raise your internal energy levels before you start the day. And in doing so, you can face all the challenges each day besets you. Or indeed, you're more than likely to enjoy all the pleasures each day affords you. And you appreciate each day we spend time taking care of your spiritual health. Meditate. Meditation is a powerful tool to raise your spiritual centeredness. It's also important, listeners, it's vitally important. And as a previous contributor to this show reminded us, all I've said is important, but equally so, we must take care of our sexual health. If you start a new relationship, before you enter into intimacy, go to a sexual health clinic and just ensure you know what your sexual status is currently. Just to make sure you're clear. Don't presume. Check it out. If you've been in long-term relationships, it's equally important that you do the same as well. Yeah. Because in our communities, levels of STIs, sexually transmitted infections, remain stubbornly high, not just for 1 year or even 10 years. It's been the case for decades because we don't talk about it. Pride and I don't know what it is. We must talk about it. Talk about it in your churches, in your mosque. Talk about it in your clubs. Talk about it in those venues where you all congregate to parlay, to discuss issues of the community. Your sexual health is important to all the other issues I've raised under this segment. I urge you, all of you, do not take your health for granted. You only remain healthy if you take deliberate steps to remain healthy. I hope that makes sense. But I said this to someone, they said, oh, what does that mean? I said, well, of course, what it means is that we are responsible. We are responsible for our health, and general health and well-being. We are responsible. We can't ask someone else to come and do it for us, okay? We are responsible. Now, I hope those messages are useful to you. I know that quite a few hundred have been moved to go to the doctor, go for their annual checks, think they've thought about their diet and recognize in some aspects that their diet is, excessive amounts of the salts or sugars, fats or otherwise. Yeah, it's vitally important that we think about our health, think about our well-being, think about our physical well-being, our spiritual well-being, our mental well-being, indeed our sexual health status. And those of you who are in Britain are listening to this transmission, we have this wonderful online service called sh24.org, okay? Or just use your search engine to find it, sh24. So you don't even need to go to the clinic. You can do this online. Yeah, you can do it online. You can gain sexual health advice and indeed treatment. Yeah? And when necessary, they might refer you to a clinic, but at least you're in control and you're not required to give your name and address. I say again, you're not required to give your name and address. SA24, a brilliant service for those who are a little coy on the subject, okay? Please, these messages are vital for our general health and well-being of our community, indeed for all communities. Yeah? But I'm particularly talking to my own community because these are messages that we've not been absorbing sufficiently. As a result, levels of diabetes, hypertension, cancers, heart conditions remain stubbornly high because we have not addressed these issues as a community. And leaders, therefore, must discuss these issues so those who are listening to their voices are able to see that this makes perfect sense. So if in doubt, I'm happy for you to call in and tell me that I've got it wrong, okay? That's fine, you can do that. But I respectfully say to people, to ignore these messages is not in our community's long-term interest, okay? That's what I say to you. It is necessary for you, all of you, to take responsibility, okay? Okay, all right. So I've given my health messages, and I hope those messages are received by you and you can acknowledge them as well. I hope so. And I'm pleased by the feedback I've received to date that gives a good indication that some people have been moved. Some people have been moved to look carefully at their general health and well-being. So I'm honored by that. I'm honored that I've affected some people. but there's still many who've yet to hear these messages. So I say to the priests, to the pastors, I say to the imams, I say to those religious community leaders, faith community leaders, please, in your places of worship, give some time for these types of messages, because it's your very followers who are falling victim to these maladies which are avoidable, because these are fundamentally lifestyle conditions. All righty, that's enough for me on the health messages, but if you want to hear more, got any questions, feel free to contact me at any time. I'm always very receptive to hear your words. And if you've got any questions, please don't hesitate to call. And if you've got any questions now and you want to talk to me about the messages I'm giving out, or if indeed you are a health professional, feel free to call now. I'm interested to speak to you, but I really want to encourage health professionals to see programs such as this as being a platform for you to communicate these messages. You're the professionals, you know the truth and the condition of our community. Okay, so happy. And if you are a health professional and you want to interact with me on these matters, please feel free to call right now on 0208 133 5616. I repeat, 0208 133 5616. Happy to interact with you right now if you want to talk to me about these health messages, or if you wish to add to what I've described to you. Okay. So if I may, I'm now going to move on, because this is going to be a really interesting show. But I do want to give light to an instance which has occurred apparently 2 years ago. One of our daughters was strip search whilst at school. In an effort by the school to find drugs, strip search. And I mean strip searched and also eternally as well. This was on the school campus, and she was actually taken out of an examination. She was taking an exam. I repeat, she was taking an exam. She was taken out of the examination room and challenged. Not before she went in, or after whilst in the examination room. Exam room. I've got to tell you, like many out there, I was appalled. But I was annoyed, very annoyed, very, very annoyed. This happened 2 years ago. I'm very annoyed. This information has only just been released to the community now. Okay. I'm almost lost for words that such an incident could have occurred inside a place which we should consider safe for our children. What infuriates me even further, I understand in the borough concerned, this incident isn't unique. It is not unique. A child, a 15-year-old child, was considered by a number of schools in this borough to be appropriate for a child to be strip searched and internally examined for drugs. And in the particular instance that we're discussing, no drugs were found. I'm being very controlled at the moment because I'm a former school governor, okay, chair of governors. And let me be quite clear. If I'd been chair of governors of school concerned, the head teacher would be held accountable for what happened. There's no ifs or buts. The teachers concerned, I would ensure will be immediately suspended with the view that their contracts are immediately terminated thereafter upon investigation. The question is, did it happen? And clearly it happened. As regards the local police who were involved in this particular instance, I think you are a complete disgrace. I don't mind telling you straight up, you are a complete disgrace. You're a disgrace to the service, our police service. You are a disgrace. I want to make it clear that if we were able to identify the names of those officers, I personally, and I know there are many thousands of people just like me, are of the view that such individuals should not be in our police force. Forgive me, service. Interesting slip of words, huh? They should not be. They are not appropriate adults to be in our police service. The teachers involved, so-called, should not be in the profession. So, of course, this incident occurred in a school in which there is a significant African or indeed Black population. Okay. I'm pretty sure if we were to gather evidence from across London, that none of these incidents have occurred in places in which the African or Black population is relatively small or minor. I'm going to hazard a guess. So I'm not calling racial or ethnic bias, because I don't have the evidence at this stage. But I believe that an investigation by the mayor's office should be conducted. It could, of course, be a contributing factor as to why the mayor, quite rightly, lost confidence in the commissioner, Aggressor Dick. Just one of a number of incidences which he considered to be unacceptable. This is 2 years ago, so it's highly likely that the mayor's office was aware. But the police service, in this regard, is a complete disgrace. And I can't sugarcoat my feelings on this one, because we broke the trust. Together, we broke the trust between family, child, and school. We need to trust that teachers who are parents in absence of the real parents take care of our children. Wholly unacceptable, and I expect to see heads roll. So I'm pleased the commissioner's gone. Now what I want to see are the officers. Not only are they investigated, they are indeed prosecuted. Because there is no way I would ever accept that a child in a school can be strip searched and internally examined for drugs. Never going to accept it. I'm never going to accept that it's acceptable behavioral management practice in a school. So I'm expecting the chair of governors to wield the axe. At this stage, I don't know the name of the school, but when I find out, I'm expecting that chair of governors to be able to explain to the community action that he or she has taken. And these other instances, which apparently occurred in the same borough, I'm expecting a detailed report as to why they happened, how could they happen, and how could it be considered to be acceptable practice. Because clearly, they are in breach of the nationally recognized safeguarding policies that schools must adhere to. They are in breach and therefore prosecutable. And I can assure you, I'll have no hesitation in joining with others to ensure the prosecution of those involved. So you no longer think that the Black or African community or some easy, forgotten people who don't matter. Never again am I expected to hear such an instances happen. So yes, I am annoyed. I'm very, very annoyed. Okay. But I've seen great strides made in the education sector. Indeed, I've seen great strides made by even our own, well, sometimes often failing Metropolitan Police Service. I've seen great strides. But I have to say to those involved, those in authority, those who have oversight of these instances, I am profoundly disappointed. Okay. I'm not inclined to put polemics, but I just want to make it clear to all and sundry that this is completely unacceptable, and we will not stand for it. I know my guest that will come in today who want to talk about this subject. Okay, she's a wonderful sister of the Black Knowledge Society, and we'll tell you more about this. But let me just conclude this issue for now of what's happened. I've spoken to officials in my own borough, and those of you aware, whilst I am the motivator, I'm also an elected councillor, Labour councillor here in Southwark. Okay, I have spoken to officials here, both councillors with the portfolio responsibility, and indeed council officials, to ensure that our safeguarding policies for young people are intact. There's clear awareness for all practitioners, teacher practitioners, those involved in working with young people. The safeguarding policies are understood and are being implemented. And whilst at this stage, at least, no official or indeed elected member are able to assure me that this has never happened in my borough of Southwark. I've got to take a deep breath on that. Okay. What I'm assured, because these individuals I know, these are family people who understand the profound emotional impact, the knowledge of what's happened across the water in this other borough, okay, has had on the community. Have assured me, I've seen some communications, and I've seen the internal reports. I'm satisfied that my local branch here in Southwark take this matter seriously and have conducted the usual due diligence to ensure that all those involved in working with young people, teaching young people, understand our safeguarding policies. And I've asked a question of each one. I've asked a question of them, and hopefully you might hear from some of them today. If we found that this had happened in this borough, would we prosecute? Okay. I believe the response I've received is absolutely, we would prosecute, because this is unacceptable behavior. I'm satisfied with the responses I've received. Okay. I'm not complacent, but I'm satisfied with the responses received. But I'm expecting the borough concerned significant changes to practices, to local practices. I'm expecting significant changes. I'm also expecting our community not to simply go on the street and ramp and shout and so on. I expect you to get serious. I expect you, those who are really concerned, to consider becoming school governors. Yeah. So you have direct responsibility for the schools concerned. I ask you to consider, if you haven't considered, elected positions, both in your councils or indeed your hospital health boards. Yeah. The opportunities to take up those positions of responsibilities, okay, ensures you're able to communicate the interests, the aspirations, the determination of our community. Because the time for rioting, the time for rallies, the time for marching has stopped. Now it's the time for us to exercise our God-given right to influence how public services are managed, how public money is spent. And there's no way public servants, whether it be the police force or the education sector, should be allowed to abuse our children. So stop the marching, stop the rallies, stop the shouting. Now we get serious. And I'm so pleased that it chose this week for us to focus on the Black Knowledge Society, led ably by an inspired sister who I've known for a little while. Okay. But the vibrations, our ancestors continue to vibrate with an energy that ensures there's a positioning, we cross our paths at the right time, a time in which we can magnify our mutual energies for the betterment of our community. So I look forward to interviewing an outstanding sister. And this time, I will get her name right. I want to honor and respect, and I see she has arrived, Onola Ademosu. Welcome to you. Can you hear us okay, Onola?
Yes, good, thanks, and good morning, Councillor.
Morning. Onola, I'm going to ask you to speak up. Your voice is lovely and soft, but so soft, we can't hear you very well.
Okay.
How are you?
How's that?
Yep, keep talking.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes.
Keep going. That's much better. Thank you.
Good.
How are you this fine morning?
I'm pretty good. I'm looking out of the window. It's a really, really clear and bright day. So all good here. So good, thanks. And just really, really grateful to have been given the honor and privilege to join you on your platform today. So thank you.
Now, we are honored and we appreciate the fact that you accept our invitation to appear. As I said, the ancestors chose this weekend on this occasion. Okay? And I'm going to first of all ask you, please, I know something of you, but I had to do the research in preparation for this show. And you are a fascinating person. And I've had this year only women. Oh, and all these shows focusing on women have been outstanding. Last week we had Dr. Marlene Ellis, an outstanding sister of extraordinary abilities, and you are most certainly akin, if I may say so. So I'm going to ask you, please, Onola, just tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you?
Okay, so I am Onola, also known as Esther.
I get
this journey that I've been on in the past 2 years has been one which has actually prompted me to look inward and really question a lot about my identity and my values and where I anchor myself. So Onola is my name, my given name, and I am a mother of 2. I am a wife, I'm a sister, I am so many things. And yeah, I am, in terms of my professional background, I have spent most of my career in international development, working on projects in South Sudan specifically.
Oh.
And my main areas of interest are really our community, if I'm being honest. So that for me is priority, our community, and particularly our young people. And my hobbies, if you like, are mainly around reading, research, as you may well realize from the work produced. I'm a very avid theatre goer. I love the theatre, and I've recently actually taken up guided meditation as well. So yeah, this journey so far has been very, very bountiful in terms of the rewards, and then allowing me to really just center myself. So that's really in a nutshell, I would say.
Thank you, because it's fascinating. I was directed to your website, okay, and wow, what would motivate someone to create a website of this depth, with this intellectual breadth, this pure expression of love? I asked myself. Okay, so what I had to do, first of all, in order to answer my own question, and I'm going to go on a question to you, don't you worry, is to look at some of the e-publications that you produced. Okay,
lovely.
Yeah, so I've now read all of your e-publications. Okay?
Wow.
So I started with Towards a Thriving Black Ecosystem. Wow, what an outstanding piece of work. Explain, just for give a quick summary for the audience, because it's on your website, and the website, let me give the website address. I would give this out this time, because honestly, it was such a wonderful, spiritually enlivening experience going through your website, because this was your inner expression, your higher expression of self and love for yourself, your family, your people.
Absolutely.
So it was an awesome experience for me. So I'm going to give out your website address, which is it is put in search engine thebks.co.uk, which of course stands for the Black. The wording right, of course, get my wording right on this, which of course stands for the Black Knowledge Society.
Okay. That's great.
Yep, I got it, don't you worry. So and BKS for Black Knowledge Society. So the bks.co.uk, all right? You put it in your search engine, people, and you'll see this wonderful website. And each of your e-publications are free of charge. You're charging for it. It's your expression. You wanted to communicate, okay? So Towards a Thriving Black Ecosystem, give us a quick summary, what is meant by that?
So that was actually our maiden edition. And that, for me, I suppose, to kind of go back a step in terms of what motivated the actual publication in itself, was that I have a background in communications, and in my academic life, I did media and cultural studies. So that's what my degree is in. And since then, I have tried to enter into the spaces that exist within society to give expression to that gift and that ability to write. In doing so, as many of our community members will be able to relate to, I came up against a lot of racism. I came up against a lot of chauvinism, and I came up against what I would ultimately label fear, fear of a individual who was certain and clear about what they wanted, and that also had the ability to actually express and define what it is that they have come to do. So, long story short, I decided to step away from the organizations that have been created where I thought I could actually express myself with these gifts and talents. And what I instead did was fast forward to 2020, when the murder of George Floyd took place.
Mm-hmm.
I just thought to myself that it was necessary for me to demonstrate and contribute my piece to the solution, I suppose, if anything. So what the first edition was really about was really just setting out what we believe ought to be the mandate that we collectively as a community are ready to actually take up and run with. So towards a thriving Black ecosystem is really just about us saying, look, for so long we have been under the heel of other communities and at the behest of our communities, and really it's just time now, rather than trying to seek acceptance and trying to integrate or assimilate, that we need to be clear about who we are, our power, and how we assert that.
Yes.
Really, in terms of the inspiration, and you'll see by the cover, a nod to the sort of values and principles that the Honourable Marcus Garvey put forward in UNIA, the Organisation of Union. So self-determination, self-sufficiency, and really just ownership, ownership of our destiny, yes, of our resources. Yes. Yeah.
Beautifully said, and said, an outstanding read. I want to commend that work to the community. I want to commend that work to the community. And I went on, of course, to read the education, the alternative curriculum. Now, I said I've a school governor for 27 years, prior to my becoming elected councillor. Okay, so I recognise this piece of work. Would you agree with me, at least to a point, that the changes that have been made to the national curriculum speaks to this paper that you produced on the alternative curriculum?
I mean, when you say changes to the curriculum, what changes specifically do you point to? I would first of all ask, because in my experience and in terms of my perception, I don't necessarily feel that the curriculum has gone far enough.
Okay.
And when I say far enough, I mean in terms of actually being a curriculum that readies young people for the current world that we're in, or that prepares them for the future world that we actually face. So I think in terms of what that particular edition is about, is really saying again that we need to be the ones front and center and steering what it is that we want our children to become. The curriculum as it stands, I don't necessarily believe has come far enough to give the children and the learners the skills required for the technical age that we find ourselves in, for the information age that we find ourselves in. But more than that, in terms of how that curriculum reflects society and the reality of what contributions have been made, I think is still lacking. I'm very aware of organizations now, that are looking at decolonizing the curriculum. And I know that that is a wide agenda, but again, that still remains within state apparatus.
Okay.
And what I'm saying is that we need to step away from that, and rather than looking at that in isolation as the solution, we need to have a sort of twin track approach where we are, again, defining and creating for ourselves institutions that are parallel, but that are reflective of our needs, so that we can actually grow and develop and move forward, and not really have to rely on state, with our begging bowls all the time.
Or to invest in ourselves, in other words, to invest in ourselves, to invest in our children is to
Absolutely.
a base from which they are able to excel. 100%, 100%. And whilst the current curriculum will satisfy the broad spectrum communities, we ourselves need to, of course, embed in our children's sense of self, purpose and intention. And that's only possible when we teach them our culture, traditions, our great history, ourselves. Take control. This station, this platform is an expression of us taking control, and therefore for the narrative. Absolutely. And I hope others are inspired by that piece of work. I've started distributing it in my networks now. Outstanding piece of work. Oh, we need more intellectuals like you. Oh my dear, do we not need more of you? I ask you now this other question, the other one I read as I read along. Out of the darkness. I wasn't sure I approved of the title, first of all, okay? But you wrote that particular piece really looking at how we perceive ourselves, okay?
Yeah.
In fact, I'm going to let you tell us, explain that piece to us, that paper to us.
Ultimately, it's really, again, about understanding, our genesis as a people, and really being able to move away from this mediated interpretation of who we are, because I'm a big fan of the work of Dr. Amos Wilson, and one thing that he emphasizes is that we as African people need to first of all recognize who we are in order to actually value ourselves and come to that place of racial esteem where we can actually produce as opposed to being consumers, and as opposed to being individuals who are remote controlled in essence. Right. So what that is about is saying, come to a place of self-awareness, self-knowledge, in order to really break this cycle that continues to manifest and perpetuate, but it does so in a very, very cunning and sometimes indiscernible way. And one thing that Dr. Amos actually is renowned for saying is that if we do not know who we are, then we are whoever someone tells us we are. And that is absolutely the issue here, is that without that anchoring in terms of self, you are constantly being pulled from pillar to post, unable to stabilize as a community and affect change as a community. And we know what the consequences of that have been, because it plays out even now and in the most recent events that we've seen in the media with child Q. So I think the ultimate message is, as our strapline reads, know thyself.
Absolutely.
And in doing so, in making that investigation, that internal inquiry, we come to a place where we are mastering our power. So it is about that self-mastery and those principles of being able to master the power that we all have, and that sovereign ability to really express that power. So that really is what Out of the Darkness is about. It's about looking back in order to move forward.
I I hear you. Only reason why I suggested I wondered with the title. Look, I have to say, we're in a particular cultural context which says black is bad and white is good. White lies are good lies, black lies are bad lies. I suppose if I had the opportunity at the time of your production of this, I would have said out of the whiteness. Okay, I would have said, okay, because it's a mindset. But don't worry, we might debate it later. You got it, yeah, you got it. Your next one, and I've found this one, as you know, being an elected official as I am, okay, fascinating. Representation, meaning, making, and manufacturing consent. I have to say to all councillors, first of all, before you elaborate on this one, and elected officials, please read this piece. Onola, please explain that to the audience. This one.
So again, this particular piece is almost an ode to my days in university when we were very, very keen students and looking at the work from the Frankfurt School, from the Birmingham Centre for Contemporary Cultural Studies, and looking at the work of some of the thinkers of the time. And, you know, there's this idea of a culture industry that was actually put forward, preferred by Max Horkheimer and Theodore Adorno. And essentially it just presents to society the fact that everything is interrelated. So the media that you see is in effect an agent of the state. It forms part of the apparatus. And what it does is that it reinforces certain messages and that things are codified in a way to elicit the consent of the people based on what the powers that be, you know, so that the sort of governing class want to encourage society to believe and accept. So that's really what this issue is kind of focused on, but more so in the specific context of us as a community and how the state apparatus, the media, have done a very good job of reinforcing stereotypes and reinforcing our position socioeconomically and otherwise.
Okay, thank you. That's a required reading. Another one I've been distributing. I see we have a caller. I haven't officially opened the line, but I've got a caller on the line with number ending 6865. Is it okay, if we take the call?
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
Good morning, caller. Can you hear us okay?
Yeah, no. We can hear you. You are loud and clear.
Oh, you can't hear. Oh, every week I'm getting this. Okay.
Yeah, the system needs some more volume, you know.
Okay.
Okay. Is that better?
All right. Thank you for the call. Thank you for that. Okay. Blessing. There you are. They're listening to you keenly, Onola. They're listening to you keenly. I'm
going to try and shout. I'm going to project a bit better.
Yes, I thought you were loud, but don't you worry. Thank you. Your works are loud, I can tell you.
Yes.
Your works are loud.
Yeah.
Thank you for that elucidation, this wonderful piece on representation and required reading, and then leads on very neatly, of course, to decriminalizing Black mental health.
Yeah.
And I've had to do a number of shows on mental health and how we organize on the subject. Okay. Please elaborate for the audience. Just give us a quick summary, and I want to encourage the audience to go to your website and download this piece for themselves. What do you mean by decriminalizing Black mental health?
Essentially, what's meant by that is that we know that the statistics around the Black community's interactions, and I use that word advisedly, with the police have been very, very fraught, have been essentially state-sanctioned violence in many instances from the experiences that our community have had, particularly when you look at the sort of 60s, 70s, 80s, when you look at the experience of those who came from the time of Windrush. I think the other things as well is that when you look at the issue of deaths in police custody, when you look at contemporary events that I'm sure we'll get onto of our children being assaulted and harassed by the police, adultification, all these different themes and issues. There is a complete lack of confidence on the part of our community in the police to respond in a way that recognizes us as citizens who have the same rights as other groups in society. So decriminalizing mental health is just one element of that. Our community, in terms of our mental health issues, tend to be criminalized, and we tend to be medicated more often than being given therapeutic interventions. And rather than it being looked at as a social problem, it's often criminalized, and that really is the issue. But apart from that, my other perspective on this is the fact that we ourselves also criminalize mental health as a community. And that is a major issue for me, because that has to be the starting point of how we remedy this ill. So it's very important that we actually learn the language of what mental well-being and mental ill health is actually about. We need to be able to demystify it, and we need to be able to separate what we believe or receive to be, the sort of cultural spiritualization of many issues that pertain to mental well-being and mental health, and that have physiological and chemical explanation within the body. So I think for me, the most urgent response needs to come from our community first, in order for us to then be equipped to face whatever system, whatever social system is acting in a pernicious way, in an aggressive way towards us when it comes to our mental well-being.
Beautifully said. I don't want to give too much away what's in this piece, but I will just say to you, it's an outstanding review of the current situation, but also points to solutions. Okay, which is a very important point to solutions.
Absolutely. We try and make that our mantra, that it's very much about, and we actually entitle our Zooms the knowledge exchange, but the idea is that we move from editorial to points of action. That really is for us critical, else it's just all hot air,
Absolutely. As I said, I'm going to encourage, I commend this piece of work to the community and encourage you to go to the website, thebks.co.uk, which stands, of course, the Black Knowledge Society. Beautiful work, outstanding piece of work that will resonate for generations to come, Onola.
We hope so, and that's the idea. It's supposed to be a repository for our people to access in a space that is democratized. I think a lot of the time these issues sometimes seem very far-flung or quite lofty and inaccessible. So I think it's important that we actually make these materials, this information, accessible and digestible for our community, else they'll struggle to actually do anything with it.
That's right, without a shadow of a doubt. And of course, I went on to read the Black Family Adapting to Survive and Thrive.
Yeah.
This one, for me, was mission critical. Mission critical. Without family, without supporting each other, there's no way we can tackle these big social issues.
Absolutely.
I'd invite you, please, a quick summary on the Black family adapting to survive and thrive.
Yeah, I mean, I think I actually opened that one in the editor's letter by saying that family begets society. And that for me, in essence, sums up what I'm saying here, is that on a micro level, we need to be able to demonstrate that we can actually model certain values, certain aspects of what it means to engage in a society as social actors. So if we can achieve that on a micro level, in terms of our interactions with family and our immediate community, then I think that then allows us to then scale to a place where at a macro level, we can actually see all these areas of people activity as Neely Fuller Jr. defines it, really begin to take shape.
Mm-hmm.
I think what I'm not saying is that we need to have the sort of 2.4 family. The age of the nuclear family, we know, is a long time past. But what I am saying is that we need to, again, understand or overstand, as Professor Les would say, we need to be able to overstand the meaning of family and not allow ourselves to be constrained by the expectations of a time past. So we're able to do family in a way that is meaningful in this current dispensation. So effectively, we recognize that we have a number of, horizontal differences in terms of how we look as people and how our families are formed and shaped. But as long as we're anchored in the pursuit of a clear objective as a community, all of those horizontal differences really take a back seat. So that's really what that edition is about. It's about pointing towards the fact that as family, as individuals, we need to be able to, on a smaller level, try and get things in order before we're able to then take that up and scale that up in the effort to nation build. Because I think ultimately what I haven't said is that the overall mission of what the Black Knowledge Society is about is nation building, and all of these areas of people activity need to be functional, need to be in operation for us to come anywhere near that sense of nationhood. And nationhood is not something that is sort of mutually exclusive to being part of a wider society, so you can still have a sense of nationhood whilst being in this British context.
Beautifully described, and an outstanding read. Says, from a strategic point of view, mission critical. So all children should be surrounded by loving, caring adults. Okay.
Absolutely, is the fundamental message.
Fundamental message. Oh, it was a wonderful read. I have to say, I've at times moved to tears. It was a beautiful read. Thank you.
That's really humbling to hear, because it is a I would actually say it's a spirit-led, heart-led, and then it is a cerebral work at the same time in terms of making sure that the message is clear. So I'm grateful to receive that feedback.
We're just privileged to have you here.
Thank you.
And the last one in this series of works of yours is Blacktivism, nation building brick by brick. And of course, each of your explanations thus far has been leading towards this particular.
That's right.
Tell us more on this one. Tell us more.
We are in no position to really come into the fullness of our autonomy as a community, of our agency as a community, until we have certain structures, institutions, values, ideologies in place.
Yes, sir.
You know, and that's essentially what it is. Until we know what we stand for, you know, we, as Dr. Amos said, we will constantly be pushed around, and not really have a center of gravity. So for me, it's just, you know, speaking to people who are absolutely dedicated, committed to doing the works, of nation building, of making sure that, you know, from an educational point of view, that we're covered, politically we're covered, health we're covered, you know, people that are in the academic space, making sure that in that area that there's advocacy, and that we're actually pushing a lot of the damaging conventions that currently are in place. So it's really about making sure that we as a community are taking those steps, and that more importantly, we are demonstrating to members of the community, those who are already in motion, those who are already taking the steps, to really inspire. And I think it's very, very key, you know, because it goes back to representation. You know, it's very important to inspire our community to understand that there are, for every single African heritage or Black, or however you want to define it, individual that there is on this earth, that you have a unique experience, a unique set of skills that ought to be brought to the table in order to construct and build our house, you know? So that's really what this is about. It's really about inspiring and demonstrating that things are happening, and that we can all start from where we are, you know? So there were a number of very key interviews there to really, again, bring people to a place of understanding around what this idea of activism is. I think there is a very, very misleading and deliberately misleading sort of definition of activism. Activism is not a dirty word, it's not a bad thing. It's something that is necessary in order to change the status quo, particularly when that status quo seeks to oppress and seeks to stifle a group of people's ability to emancipate, to liberate, and to move forward.
Wonderfully, articulately, well said. I'm receiving quite a few text messages, and there's a lot of this. There's a lot of this thumbs up. There's a lot of this. Oh, well, anyway.
Thanks. Yeah.
I say to Onola that you must continue to write. Okay, your voice is being heard. Your voice is being heard. I want to make sure it's understood. Your voice is being heard, and I will continue to repeat your voice to ensure it is definitely heard. And as we move forward, of course, the more contemporary issues are before us. Okay, and required. Just before you came on, I spoke to the current instance. Okay, and child Q. I have to say that I had to control my temper on the matter. Okay, but I was former school governor of 27 years. Absolutely no way such activity could have taken place in the school to which I led. And if it did, heads would roll. And I would have had to make a public declaration of actions taken. Okay. But of course, as you know, reparations start with self.
Mm-hmm.
We must start that internal repair. Therefore, we must invest in ourselves. Okay. So a few questions for you, because I note that you have established a GoFundMe site with the view to raise money to address this and other related issues. Can I ask you just to explain why you did it, and just so we're clear, what your intent, please.
Sure. So I'll start with the why. As everybody in our community and hopefully beyond our community as human beings, this particular incident where a child had to endure this level of dehumanization, it really, really did disturb me to such an extent that
I understand.
I really had to give a lot of thought to my personal well-being around the issue. But outside of that, my concern went out to, of course, child Q and her family.
Yes. Oh my God.
I think even wider than that is what happens to our children that are still having to go into these schools on a weekly basis, Monday to Friday. What happens to them? How is their trauma addressed?
Indeed.
You know, because we know that there are constant failings, particularly where our children are concerned, in terms of recognizing their humanity, recognizing their emotional well-being and welfare. And I think that because of that, and because of what we actually saw when it came to George Floyd and the riots and so on and so forth, my concern is, how do we enable our children to express what they're going through in a space that is safe, in a manner that means that they will not be further victimized, criminalized, or persecuted for expressing the pain, the anger, the rage, and the fear, you know, the fear that they feel. So rather than focusing on what has been, which is important, and that's why I always say that for those who want to demonstrate, that's absolutely fine. It's each and every individual's prerogative to do what they want to do, provided that it does no harm to others. My issue is, where do we go from here? What is it that we can do to safeguard our children? Again, on the theme of taking ownership and responsibility ourselves, as opposed to waiting for the state's response, waiting for all of the various reports, investigations, and potential, and I'd say potential advisedly, because potential policy changes that may never materialize. But what is it that we can do to ensure that our children who are going to school, specifically our girls, because this is about the violation of the female body as well.
Your child.
Absolutely, absolutely. So what is it that we can do to ensure that they stay safeguarded and that they know that we are looking after their interests? Forget the state. You know, the state will do what it does. But we as parents, we as carers, we as those who have that oversight and who are custodians of our children, what is our direct response to their need in the now? You know? So the reason why I set up this GoFundMe is to ensure that we are able to create a mechanism of response. And what that response is to bring together a pool of licensed practitioners, mental health practitioners who are specialists in child counselling services and therapy. What we want to do with them is work in partnership and collaboration with our safeguarding experts. So it may well even be that some of the safeguarding experts who were part of the review, part of the City and Hackney review, child safeguarding review, that we actually look at getting them to participate in making the mechanism available so that our children have access to services that allow them to express themselves and ensure that from an academic point of view and just from a holistic point of view, that they are not left with that trauma, you know? So it's very important that we find an outlet for them to have that expression. But I think the most important thing as well is that we have a reporting and referral mechanism that is independent, again, of state, so that our children have that confidence to be able to report issues such as this.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Because we absolutely know for a fact that but for this report, this particular incident would have been another one swept under the carpet. There are many that aren't coming forward who are already living with their trauma, who are expressing that trauma in a number of behavioral ways. Their self-esteem, their social interaction, their education is suffering because they have no vehicle, no means of expressing themselves so that they can find relief.
And so I'll just pause just for a moment. 100% agree with you. I believe we have a caller on the line. Good morning, caller. Good morning. Who do we have on the line?
Hi, good morning.
Morning. Oh, Natasha. Good morning. Oh, soon to be counsellor, Natasha.
Morning. It's absolutely amazing hearing from you. It's quite refreshing and inspiring. And it's been a long time since I've actually heard people make reference to books where I can identify and, you know, talk about concepts such as nation building and the importance of global self-esteem, and also the accountability that we have for ourselves. I've been working on Southwark Black Parents Forum with Councillor Seaton. It's been absolutely amazing. And one of the things that we're constantly trying to promote is global self-esteem. How do we engage our community members to actually, outside of academia, outside of community, you know, social events that are structured around going out and theatre productions and stuff, to actually think about how do we build a nation? How do we actually begin to ensure that things around us are reflective of who we are and all of our dynamism, even within our political bodies or the groups that we are in? How do we express our uniqueness so we're not limited? And it's just absolutely amazing to actually see, hear about some of your works, and I'm truly inspired. And I hope that, you know, we actually have the opportunity to have a coffee and really look at ways that we can include some of your works in a curriculum or program that we can actually, you know, deliver to our parents in a micro way, in a smaller way.
Absolutely.
I'd like to say big kudos to you. I mean, today, hearing your voice has reminded me about the connection to our people. There's a lot of works that have already been established. You've referred to Nellie Fuller. I mean, beautiful pieces. Amos Wilson. I mean, yesterday, months ago, I was looking for the blueprint to Black Power. I was like, where has this book gone? Who's my book? Who's my book? I was like, Awakening the Black Genius. And, you know,
absolutely,
even some of the beautiful stuff by Naeem Akbar as well. You know, The Ancient Light of Africa and Community of Self. These are beautiful works. And I think we need to be inspired, and we need to be inspired and optimistic. But I do have concerns about us being quite reactionary. Mm-hmm. You know, when something happens, we have a whole community that jumps on the bandwagon and go and start picketing and making noise. And in 4 weeks' time, when the dust is settled, when we're looking for people to do key things in our community and not talk, but actually, you know, offer services to mentor children, to support people, you know, by helping them taking children to school, you know, or, you know, be in key places where we're doing exercise and things. These people are not available. So
hold on there, Natasha. You're right. And remember, this is the Motivator Show, where we translate words into action. And of course, success is ours for the taking. Let's just hear a reaction from Onola to what you've said. I'm sure she has a perspective on what we can do to begin to resolve this, the healing process that needs to happen. Onola.
Absolutely. No, thank you so much, Natasha. And your call has really just inspired a big smile, as you can see, first of all. But beyond that, it's really, really encouraging to know that there are like-minded individuals who are ready to collaborate and do the work, put our shoulder to the wheel and get things done on that micro level, first of all. I think in response to what you say about our people being reactionary, absolutely. And that is one thing that I expressed in one of the pieces actually in the publication. And one thing that I always say is that firefighting is not a strategy.
No.
That is not a strategy to nation build. That is not a strategy to address the problems that we face as a community. So I think in terms of what you're saying about people's availability, one of the key issues, and it goes back to something that Claude Anderson mentions in his book, what's it called? Black Labour, White Wealth. Mm-hmm. One thing that he says is that we need to build our economic floor, first of all, as a community, because without that, you will constantly find that we're relying on goodwill, you know, and a lot of the time, unfortunately, again, because of the way that the system is designed, it is relentless in its demands of us. You know, any time that we try and take our foot off the sort of pedal and try and actually remedy a lot of what's going on in our community, it punishes us, it actively punishes us for it. So what we need to do is to recognize that everybody is a stakeholder in this community, and everybody as a stakeholder must play their role. And what I mean by that is that those who are in a position to actually financially support a lot of the work that we want to do in order to nation build, they need to step up. You know, as much as we are looking at reparations on a global scale, as much as we're looking at reparations from the point of view of remuneration as well as self-repair and healing, we need to understand that reparations is also us recognizing what it is that we have at our disposal as individuals to actually address the problems that we have. Until we get that financial floor, that economic floor in place, the pursuit of everything else is futile, because we are, let me just put it this way, we're in a state of arrested development.
Indeed.
Which essentially just means that we have our hands tied because we are subject to the state all the while that we cannot use our own financial means to pull ourselves up and move forward. So that would be my response to how we address this issue of being reactive as opposed to proactive. I'm all for it, but we need to be very, very sober in how we analyze and look at the root cause as to why we are the way we are. Yes, there's an aspect of identity shaping. There's an aspect of, you know, augmentation of our mindsets that is very, very important. But the reality is that we've been programmed for so long that in order to deprogram us, deprogram the settings that we're currently on, it requires us to meet people where they are. So a lot of the time, that's why I always say that the Pan-African space almost inadvertently creates a lot of the same barriers and hierarchy sometimes that you find in the world that we're trying to escape, you know? So I think there's a lot to be done on that side, but there's equally some very, very basic, essential, rudimentary, everyday things that we need to just really activate within our community in order for us to have a sustainable go at transforming one area of people activity at a time.
Thank you, thank you. And Natasha, you may want to further elaborate on initiatives that you have planned, which are really to talk to the issues raised by Onola, like Parents Forum and other initiatives maybe.
Yes, Onola, that was a very, very thorough response. And I really, really like the surmise and the identification about the Pan-Africanist space and how, you know, sometimes we create similar structures in the hierarchies and we sometimes don't meet people where they are. But I do think that for me, with the Black Parents Forum, the key thing is about promoting global self-esteem and making sure that all areas of the parents as well as the children's minds is reprogrammed step by step, and giving people agency, the right to self-determination, obviously on a smaller scale in their localities. You understand? Like being able to walk in a space and understand that your ancestors have once walked here.
Yes.
And you have a rich legacy. And we have staying power. We have more than resilience. We have the capacity to rebuild and restructure our environments in a way that's truly reflective of us. And whilst we may not have all the economic resources, we can begin to build by pulling together as a community and recognizing that even if we just donate £1,
absolutely,
when we attend an event, if 20 of us come, that's £20. And if we organize an event to go out, that means we can pay for others. In terms of looking at strategies to get money within our communities, this is an interesting concept because often you'll find that the people that are most willing to engage often have limited resources themselves.
That's right.
So it's about finding a balance, but I'm definitely looking at ways in which that can be changed. And outside of corporate social responsibility from local companies or corporations, what do our more affluent members in the community want and want to see in regards to their people locally?
Absolutely. And that's an interesting point, Natasha, because one of the things that I feel is that it does take traumatic events like this sometimes to really rouse the consciousness of those within our community who are in the sort of higher echelons, the more elite, to really recognize that what affects one affects all, and that quite possibly, but for the grace of God, this could be one of their children. You know, so it's a leveler. Some of these issues are a leveler when it comes to how we as Black people experience our reality in this society and globally. So I think it's unfortunate that it takes these particular instances of our backs being against the wall for certain actors within our community to take a stand, you know, but what we don't want is for it to be momentary. We don't want it to just be a sort of flash in the pan. We want it to be something that is sustainable, and that's where the deprogramming is so important. That's what then allows it to be sustainable, because it's a change of mind, it's a renewal of mind that allows people to go the distance.
Can I just say to you that the founder of this platform, Chipa Cumberby, shows regularly on a Sunday afternoon between 12 and 3 p.m. One of his themes is always deprogramming, you know, unlearning the propaganda that we've been taught, particularly those propaganda which are clearly anti-African propaganda, you know, which many English, Scotch and Welsh people absorb as part of their consciousness, and they just simply act it out, but it's a part of their consciousness, and that's what we're up against right now.
We ourselves absorb it as well, Councillor. We absorb it, and we harbour those same sentiments.
Yes.
There is a very, very widely held notion of self-hate that is very apparent within our community. And we only have to look at the idea of colorism and how that plays out within the community to get a sense, just a glimpse into this idea of self-hate and how this propaganda machine wages its war against the mind.
Yes, well said, well said.
Powerful, powerful, powerful. Natasha, I tell you, I need to get you two sisters in the same room.
We need to have coffee.
we do, because I was just looking through some books. Sorry to interject. I took out Staying Power by Stephen Fry and the McRitchie books and Black Britain and J.A. Rogers, Sex and Race. And then I was reading Nature Knows No Color Lines, and I'm thinking this concept of race in itself is very interesting.
Yeah.
And how we use it in our communities. In some sense, there's a sense of racial pride that we see that is around us. And of course, we want to encourage it, but it's very superficial. And when I come across young people, like there was a group of young people smoking weed on my stairs, and I spoke to them and I said, look, you're a beautiful, beautiful group of young people, but we must destigmatize ourselves. I said, what you're doing right now is very typical of young people, but how you're doing it, you're promoting a stereotype, and we must let go of that.
Yeah.
I said, why do you have to sit here on the stairs? And I just started speaking about, issues around racial pride and stuff like that. And you know what? Sis, when I came back the next morning, they cleaned up all the stairs. And you could tell they took the time. And I said, so that's all it took.
That's
just
powerful.
Let me add to that as well, Natasha, that my time as a school governor, engaging young people who had similar thoughts and also that had developed an anti-academic mindset. Oh, I don't be a bookworm. No, I don't be tough like this. And I recall the engagement was required to remind them that the African origin of mathematics is well documented. The African origin of literature is well documented. The African origin of astrology is well documented. And do you know what their eyes did? It opened wide. They said, what?
Yeah.
And I had to share with them books appropriately delineated that they could read for themselves. And you know what happened in my own school when I joined the school? You will be surprised. The school was achieving 9% for GCSE results between A to C. 9%. And in my first year being a school governor, that school had over 1,100 exclusion events. It's a school with 98% African children. Can you imagine? By the time I left, we were above the national average, and we had not excluded anyone for at least 7 years prior to my departure. But there's a lot of details in there which I do need to document, Onola, you're so right. I need to document the experience and how we changed that failing school around, But it was a profound experience. And to find myself, and this is another one, this is our fault, to be the only non-white governor on a school board of 18 persons. Can you imagine? Okay.
Yeah, I think that is very, very critical. I think understanding the structures and how they work is also a very important part of our strategic response. If you don't understand how these structures work, unfortunately, you may attempt to solve the problem without having a full view of what the actual issues are. So rather than respond to the problem comprehensively and in a way that's commensurate, you're only dealing with surface level issues.
I hear you. And can I, if I may, I want to go back to the issue at hand and child Q. And I want to just ask you again, we talked about the GoFundMe and you indicated as to why it's important. I want you just to elaborate further, because there are others listening here, and I want to make sure the key messages in relation to what's happened in this instance. What are your key messages that the listeners should take away with them in relation to this instance and what we could do about it, and what your actions in terms of the GoFundMe side? What is the intent? I just want you to further elaborate. I'm receiving some messages, and I'm hearing that they want some guidance as to how we are responding to this issue. Go ahead, Onola.
I think the key message is, let's ourselves respond to the need of now. let's make sure that we're safeguarding our children, our girl children in these school environments. And let's make sure that we create avenues for them to express their trauma. And let's create avenues for them to report and refer when they have concerns. The main issue for me is not about how we have these public demonstrations or outpourings of grief. That is important and it has its place, but it's what we do in the aftermath. What is it that we do to respond to stem the flow or stem the issues now that pertain to the mental well-being of our children in these education environments? So as I say, the GoFundMe is to raise funds to allow our girls access to the mental health provision and support that they need, and also the safeguarding mechanisms that are independent of the school structures, that at the moment do not have the confidence of these young people.
Yeah. And therein lies the real challenge. And that's where we come in as a community and why it's so critical that we must be involved in these solutions finding. We cannot have our children who are fearful go to school.
It always has to be about the solutions, and it always has to be as parents, as elders, that we need to be a covering for our children. We need to be their protection. Yeah. You know, they need to know that they have our support, but they equally need to know that they have the opportunity to express themselves without fear of persecution, criminalization, or victimization.
Yes, and those are powerful words. I have no idea why you do not live in Southwark. What?
It's just not green enough. Just not green enough.
We've got a few parks, a few trees.
How do you compete with the Garden of England?
Oh, well, we're committed here. Southwark Labour is committed to planting 10,000 trees over the coming years, and as part of our climate change emergency policy strategy. And there are a few other really green initiatives that we have planned. It will be very much a family-centered place for you.
Quite the pitch. That's quite the pitch.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I'll give it some thought.
No, I really appreciate this. Has been a really useful interaction. I know there'll be many replays on both Mixcloud, Facebook, and YouTube. It's been truly rich in content. I'll take this quick call. I'll take this quick call. Good morning, caller. Who do we have on the line?
Good morning, Councillor Okoto from Southwark.
Oh, Councillor Okoto. Oh, you are amongst some powerful women, because you are truly a powerful woman. How are you this fine morning?
I'm very well. How are you both?
We are
very well. Good morning, Councillor.
Councillor, do you have a question to pose, or are you going to explain to us what's happening here in Southwark in our response to the child queue situation?
It will be the latter.
Okay.
Thank you for the guest speaker. She's very inspirational. Mm-hmm. But I think it's really important for me to also talk about child queue in context of Southwark. Obviously, recognizing that this didn't happen in Southwark, and I think it's important for us to acknowledge that. But I would say that the first element of safeguarding is to never assume it will never happen. Mm-hmm. And so for as a borough, we take this, and we've taken this case very seriously. I'm not sure how many of you have read the case through to you, but looking through it, I mean, there's so many different angles, but there's so many different, the professionals involved have got wrong, from the police to the school itself. And it's important that we all safeguard ourselves for this ever happening. So the first initial position that I've taken is to write up to our borough commander, Colin Wingrove, mm-hmm. to ask and to get assurance that his officers that engage with our community in Southwark, that interact with our children in Southwark, are, first of all, properly trained and know their safeguarding duties. Some of you will know that in safeguarding rules, legislation, as a local authority, we have to work with partners like the police to protect our children. And so it's important that everyone involved knows their position. And if you read the case review, the police and so many different elements didn't know the responsibility. First of all, one of the clear omissions there is that before you do a type of stop and search, and this is the kind of the greater level of stop and search where you expose intimate parts, you need to get a senior level permission to do that. Yes. And I doubt this happened in this case. So there's so many different elements that wasn't followed from the police in this case. And so that's my ask the Royal Commander, an official letter, asking for his assurance, and I'm waiting for that response back. Okay. Additionally, as well, we also acknowledge that the school.
I'm sorry. It is. Oh, could you just hold on just a second? Councillor Koto, are you still there? Oh, I'm sorry. I attempted to merge the call. I'm sorry. Just 1 second. Councillor Koto, are you still there?
Yes, I'm still there.
I'm really sorry. Can I ask for a caller with number ending 4938 just to hold, please? Councillor Koto, please continue. Of course. Yeah, continue. Sorry, continue. Yeah.
We go through our safeguarding board to ensure that schools also know their responsibility with regards to their children. In this case, the school could have dealt.
Sorry, Councillor Koto, just pause for a moment. Can I ask the caller, can you just mute your phone? We're getting feedback on your phone. Continue, Councillor Koto. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so to also ensure that schools know their responsibilities. In the child queue, in the case of child queue, the school involved could have dealt with the issue. They've got powers to have dealt with such issue without escalating it to the police. And so, you wonder why it got that far. Again, we need to be assured that our schools are and continue to be a safe place for our children. And so the safeguarding board hopefully will take this on board. I mean, this is not to say, that we could never, this will never happen again. I'm sure, I mean, this is just probably the tip of the iceberg if you think about it. This is just one element of racial kind of experiences of our people. And so it's important that we continue, and as it was said before, this shouldn't be a flash in the pan. This should be continual digging and continue holding up to scrutiny those who have the responsibility to safeguard us and our children going forward. And I think I'll leave it there for the next call, I think.
Thank you so much for that explanation. And I hope other councils are listening in other boroughs, if they're able to. In fact, we've almost run out of time, unfortunately. Councillor Akilta, thank you very much. And I really want to applaud you on your outstanding work as an elected councillor and a cabinet member here in Southwark. Thank you for all your work.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure, my pleasure. Can I take the next caller very quickly? Good morning. Caller with number ending 4938. You can unmute yourself now. Tell her to mute yourself. Good morning. Okay. Caller with number. Maybe they'll. In fact, Onola, we're in a closing few minutes, as it usually happens this way. Never mind. If the caller with number ending with 4938, if you wish to unmute yourself, you can. But otherwise, we've got maybe 2 minutes or so before the end of the program. I'm going to hand over to you, Onola. Give us your closing message. Give us your closing message. What is the closing message you'd like the audience to appreciate about yourself, but also actions they should take themselves as well?
Thank you, Councillor. I think in closing, I would just say that from my point of view.
Okay, there we go. I think we've got them all now. Good morning. Good morning. Okay. Can I ask you, caller with number ending 4938, good morning. Get invited. Don't worry, they've gone now. Don't worry. So go. We'll get invited eventually. Go ahead. Yeah.
So from my point of view, it's just.
Okay. Just one more time. Good morning. Can you hear us? Okay.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
We can this time. I have to say I've got maybe a minute, but my program closes at 10 o'clock, and I've got to respect the next pilot. So go ahead. You have a quick question?
Yes. Good morning. That's a question. I just really want to thank you, thank Onola, thank all the speakers. My name is Felicia Bosherin. I'm the CEO and founder of Spring Community Hub. And the clients we see, yes, it may seem not related, but to me, it's very related. It's a food bank that supports clients to deal with underlying causes. And what we see is typically of what's happened with child queues. What we hear when people come to pick up food, the issues, the underlying issues are so related to who we are as people. And just listening to you today has just given me scope for how we address. I started off of wanting to address this underlying causes that make us rely on systems so much. And what's happening here is today, I've kind of got a lead, and I will be contacting interviews to just see how we can, how in Southern, we have over 80% of those coming to food banks are from our continent. And how do we move that on? Because the system isn't working for us. So I really want to thank you all. It's really been a great eye-opener, knowing that there are other people looking at why we're finding ourselves in this situation. So I just want to say huge thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Nola. Thank you, everyone who's spoken. You've done a good job. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your determination to get through. I've taken note of your number. We'll be in touch.
All right. Thank you.
Blessings to you, Onola. Okay, over to you.
Thank you, Councillor. I really just wanted to end by saying that we all have something to contribute.
Absolutely.
That's my main message. And let it not be that we are satisfied with this default position of being those people that protest and that shout and that express their outrage in sort of individual moments or acts. We need to start designing the future that we want for ourselves and our children. And the way that we do that is by taking action and by joining together. We don't need to necessarily have all the answers individually, but when we come together, we can be a force to be reckoned with. And I think what's most important is that we recognize that we are worthy. That's the main message, that we as a people are worthy.
Yes.
And I would really be encouraging people, no matter what your contribution, it is valuable. Never ever look at your contribution as too small, or never look at your contribution as being irrelevant or minimizing it. It's very important that we all do what we can and that we support each other to sustain what it is that we seek to build, which is a nation.
Oh, beautiful. It was the right decision to have just women this year, just women, the power of our women, the power of our women. Bless you. Bless you. Bless you.
Thank you so much. I'm really grateful to have shared this platform and to have had the feedback from the callers as well. It's been very encouraging, inspiring and thought-provoking. So thank you.
My last very quick request of you. I've quoted your website address. Are there other means to contact you?
Yes, thank you. I'm terrible with these things. So we have our Facebook community, which is the Black Knowledge Society on Facebook. We have our Instagram, for those who are of that persuasion. It's TBK Society. So @ and then TBK Society.
Right.
And then for any inquiries, for anybody who seeks to find out more about the work we do, for anybody who wants to contribute to the next edition or future editions of the publication, it is very much a co-curated piece of work. You'll notice that it's not just me in there. There are other people who contribute. And that is, again, a vehicle for people to express what it is that they feel. So I will encourage people that engage with us to send an email to inquiries@thebks.co.uk. That's inquiries@thebks.co.uk.
Wonderful. That's it. Perfect. Perfect. In that case, then I'm going to say thank you so much. You have been an outstanding guest. Okay?
Yes, to you.
This is a truly memorable occasion, and I'm confident you will go from strength to strength, and your works will resonate for generations.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So grateful.
And to the audience, thank you very much for your, as the leader of this stage would say, for your listening ears. Okay, and we hope that this de-brainwashing station has contributed to your impersonal empowerment, raising your esteem, your confidence to go forward. Never should we find ourselves in victim mode again. We are asserting ourselves as Black, as African peoples. We are asserting our authority in the world. No longer are we victims. Praise be to you all. Good day. Praise be. Ashe. Bye-bye all. Thank you.